Hey, what's up everybody? It's the Food Doctor back here in the kitchen as always with my trusty sidekick, my son Shaman, the Food Apprentice. We're back here for episode 4. We hope you've really loved the first 3 episodes, and we want to start this week by thanking everybody for viewing our episodes, hitting the like button, and especially the subscriptions. And we're having a great time doing this, and we hope to keep it going for a long time.
Today we've got something really special in store for you guys. Tell them about it, Dad.
Yeah, that's right, buddy. All right, so we've been getting some requests, and I wanted to start our first request episode by honoring my sister, who I was talking to recently, and she said, you guys should really do a Back to Your Roots episode. And I thought, yeah, that's a great idea. And the first thing that came to my mind was my grandma's chicken and dumplings. My grandma's chicken and dumplings was one of those things that I remember eating, seemed like every week. I'm sure I wasn't that lucky, but I do remember sitting down often and eating chicken and dumplings with her. And she always served them with drop biscuits, which I'm sure came out of a Bisquick box, but to me, they were the greatest things in the world. So we didn't do the biscuits this time. We just went with the purest chicken and dumplings recipe, and we'll see how it turns out.
Erica, Auntie, this one's for you.
All right, so here we have our ingredients for the stew. We have about 4 pounds of boneless, skinless chicken thighs here, and I would normally use bone in, but we didn't have any, so happen to have these out in the freezer. We have 4 teaspoons of vegetable oil divided into 2 teaspoons each, times 2. 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter. We have 3 carrots here, peeled and sliced about a 1/4 inch thick. 2 ribs of celery, again sliced 1/4 inch thick. We have a medium onion here, diced to minced. We have 6 tablespoons of unbleached all-purpose flour and a 1/4 cup of dry red wine. Here is the base. We have about 4.5 cups of chicken stock. We have a 1/4 cup of whole milk. We have 1 teaspoon of minced fresh thyme, 2 bay leaves, 1 cup of frozen peas that are still frozen, and we have 3 tablespoons of fresh parsley for garnish. Okay, so we have our Dutch oven here on the stove, medium-high heat. The Food Apprentice has gone ahead and added the first 2 teaspoons of vegetable oil, and we're going to leave it in there until it just barely starts to smoke. Okay, so next we're going to add about half the chicken. We're going to cook this until it's golden brown on both sides. Probably going to take 8 to 10 minutes. Okay, so we have cooked both halves of the chicken. And now we're going to take and reserve this chicken fat here from out of the pan. We're going to put that into the dumplings later, and what that does is help the flour in the dumplings to set and expand, and so it doesn't absorb as much of the stew, and therefore the dumplings don't get so gummy and floppy. Okay, so the chicken's done. The next step is to melt the butter in the Dutch oven. We're going to add the carrots, celery, and onion. Not necessarily in that order. And we're going to let these cook until they're soft, probably 5 or 6 minutes. And sprinkle it with a little bit of salt. Okay, so the veggies are starting to soften up nice. So next we're going to add the flour. And then we're gonna add the wine and try to scrape up any of those yummy brown bits on the bottom. Obviously get our roux going here. And that is gonna be delicious. Okay, next we're gonna add the broth. The milk. The thyme. And the bay leaves. And I'm gonna give that a good stir. Gonna start to really kind of look like chicken and dumplings now. We're gonna take the chicken and put it right back in, along with the juices that have built up on the plate. All right, so we got everything back into the Dutch oven. We're going to cover this up, let it simmer until the chicken is fully cooked and really nice and tender, probably about an hour. All right, everybody, so it's been about an hour now. The stew has cooked, simmered strong. The chicken is fully cooked and nice and soft. I'm just gonna shred it with 2 forks. How easy that comes apart. I remember this being just like my grandma used to make it. Obviously taking out the bay leaves at this point. Once I get the chicken shredded, I'm gonna put it back into the stew, and then we're gonna start with our dumplings. All right, so as you can see, the chicken has been shredded. It's now back in the stew. I got it just on very low heat there. And we're gonna start forming up the dumplings. We're gonna plop them right in there when they're ready. All right, so for the ingredients on the dumplings, we have 2 cups of unbleached all-purpose flour, 1 tablespoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of table salt, 1 cup of whole milk, and then we have the 3 tablespoons of reserved chicken fat from when we were browning the chicken. I didn't have quite enough, so I substituted a little bit of butter, but the important thing is you come up with about 3 tablespoons or so total. Okay, so first thing is we're gonna mix the flour, the baking powder, and salt together in a medium bowl, and we're gonna whisk that up until it's nice and uniform. Okay, next we're gonna combine the milk and the fat and microwave it for about a minute or so until it's warm. Not hot, definitely not boiling, just warm enough to expand this flour. All right, we're gonna take the warmed milk and fat mixture. We're gonna stir that up a tad, and then we're gonna combine it in here with the flour until it's just combined. And you can start to get the picture that the dumplings are gonna come together. It's gonna take a little bit of work, but this is a good start. All right, so we're gonna stir it until it's incorporated and mostly smooth. There may be some stragglers down at the bottom there, but this is mostly incorporated. So then we're gonna just start to kind of form up the dumplings. We're gonna drop them in this stew, and we're gonna turn it back on to simmer for about another, 15-20 minutes. We're bringing the soup back up to a simmer. Next step is we're gonna add the peas. These are still pretty much frozen, but that's okay, they'll cook just perfect. And then we're gonna add the parsley as well. You can add this as a garnish when the stew is done, but I like to add it now. A quick stir. Get the peas down inside there so they start to soften up. And then gonna start forming up the dumplings. About the size of a golf ball. Some people like them really uniform. I don't. My grandma used to make them. They were never the same shape. So I just fold them up loosely. Should get about 15 or 18 out of this, depending on how big you make them. All right, so you can see we've gotten the dumplings sunk in there. We brought the stew back to a simmer, so we're just going to cover it. Let it simmer for another 15 to 20 minutes. It's going to be beautiful. Okay, so as you can see, we brought the stew back to a simmer. The peas and parsley are in, the dumplings are in. They're starting to firm up a little bit, it looks like. So we're going to reduce the heat to low. We're going to cover this and we're going to let it simmer for about another 15-20 minutes. All right, so here we go. About 15-20 minutes later, stew's thickened up. The dumplings have exploded almost, but kept their shape, kept their form. That's due to the way that hot milk and fat expands it. We got our little Hoover down here. Her name's Rosie. She's always looking for something on the floor. And that's the Food Apprentice, of course, and it's about time for the moment of truth.
It's probably still hot, but I'll try it. Gotta get a bite with dumpling. I'm gonna get a small bite first.
Can you see me loving that as a kid?
Mm-hmm.
What do you taste?
I mean, the chicken is cooked perfectly. The dumplings are actually really simple. They're like a beginner's recipe if you just make them by themselves, like apple dumplings and other stuff.
What do you think about the dumplings themselves?
I mean, they're not as I imagined they would be after not having them in like, 6 or 7 years, but I mean, they're still pretty good.
Okay. You like the texture?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, everybody. Well, thanks again for joining us on another episode of The Food Doctor. We'll see you all in a week or as soon as we can.